Hey everyone, ready to dive into some seriously fascinating stuff about AI.
Yeah.
This whole AI and elections thing, right? I mean, it's 2024 and feels like every single day there's a new headline about AI being like the death of democracy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the hype, this election cycle has been pretty relentless, you know?
Absolutely relentless. Everyone's kind of on edge, right? So we've got like this whole stack of analyses and research reports and even opinions from some really, really prominent figures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag, you know? So I'm thinking, what do you say we take a deep dive into all of this and try to figure out if this AI doomsaying is for real
Okay.
or if there's something else going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. I mean, it's a complex issue, but I think you'll find that the reality is, more nuanced than the headlines, as always.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was reading this article earlier this year that straight up called it tech-enabled Armageddon. Right. Talk about scary. We're like predicting elections getting screwed up left and right.
Oh, yeah.
And that one quote, I don't know if you saw it, it said, anybody who's not worried was not paying attention.
Wow.
Chillin' stuff.
I mean, those predictions definitely got people's attention, sparked a lot of concern, right?
Oh, for sure.
And it's not like those fears came from nowhere. AI tools, they can manipulate media. They can target individuals with personalized messages, and they can spread misinformation on a scale we've never seen before. Right?
Yeah.
So the potential for misuse in elections is definitely there.
Okay, so the potential is there. But did any of these like scary predictions actually come true? That's what I'm really curious about.
Well, that's where it gets interesting,
Okay.
because when we look at the actual data from elections that have already happened this year, um, the picture isn't quite as dramatic as those early warnings suggested.
Really? But I mean, we keep hearing all this stuff about AI meddling,
Mm.
deep fakes and micro-targeting and all that stuff.
That's the power of a good story, right?
Yeah.
Gets amplified, gets repeated, even if the evidence doesn't quite back it up. Let me give you an example. Meta, the folks behind Facebook,
Oh, yeah, sure.
they've actually admitted that AI is being used for election meddling, but they've also found that its impact has been pretty incremental. Not the massive disruption everyone was worried about.
So not zero impact, but not the end of the world either.
No.
Okay, interesting. What about other sources? Did they find anything similar?
Yeah, actually they did. We've got this study here from the Alan Turing Institute
Mm.
over in the UK, and they looked at over 100 national elections.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And they found evidence of AI interference in only 19 of them.
Oh, wow.
And even in those cases, they couldn't say for sure that AI actually changed the results of the election.
Interesting. So we've got Meta saying the impact was incremental, and then the Alan Turing Institute finding limited evidence of AI meddling, actually like swinging elections. So it seems like the data is telling a different story than all the like scary headlines.
Hmm.
Why do you think those early predictions were so off base?
I think they might have overestimated AI's power,
Okay.
and underestimated a few key things about human behavior
Okay.
and the realities of politics.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's unpack that a bit. What are we missing here?
Well, let's start with the fact that changing someone's mind is hard,
Yeah.
even without AI in the mix. Convincing people to shift their deeply held belief, that's incredibly difficult. There's
Okay.
like a ton of research on this, and it consistently shows that even in the best of circumstances, shifting someone's political views is a tall order.
So you're saying that all the like fancy AI algorithms and micro-targeting, it can't just magically like brainwash people into voting a certain way?
Exactly. You know, it's not that simple.
Right.
AI can definitely be used to fine-tune messaging, but it can't completely override human psychology, right?
Yeah.
People have their own biases, their own experiences,
Yeah.
and they're influenced by a lot more than just what they see online.
Oh, right.
It's like trying to fit square pegs into round holes.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about all the concerns about AI, like pumping out tons of misinformation and fake news?
Right.
Surely that has some impact on voters, right?
It definitely could.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: AI-generated content, it has to compete with everything else online.
Right.
It's like shouting into a hurricane.
Oh, wow.
Think about how much information you encounter every day, just like scrolling through your feeds, right?
Oh, yeah.
How much of it actually sticks with you?
Honestly, not a whole lot. I usually just kind of skim through most of it.
Exactly. And that's the point.
Yeah.
AI might be able to create a ton of content, but it can't guarantee that anyone will actually see it,
Yeah.
let alone be swayed by it, right?
Right.
It's all just part of the digital noise,
Yeah.
fighting for our already limited attention spans.
Okay, that makes sense. What about this idea of micro-targeting? Isn't that supposed to be like AI's secret weapon in elections?
Uh-huh.
Creating those like hyper-personalized messages that really resonate with individual voters?
That was the theory, but the reality seems to be a bit different.
Okay.
There's actually growing evidence that voters are turned off by overly personalized message. You know what I mean?
Really?
It feels invasive and manipulative.
So instead of persuading people, it's just like creeping them out?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It's like when you visit a website and suddenly you're seeing ads for that exact product you were just looking at.
Oh, yeah.
It can feel unsettling, right?
Totally. Like Big Brother is watching or
Yeah.
something.
Right. And that's what's so fascinating about this whole thing.
Yeah.
We tend to think of AI as this all-powerful force,
Right.
but sometimes it stumbles over its own cleverness.
Right.
And it really highlights something important.
What's that?
Voting decisions, they aren't just about the information people are exposed to. They're influenced by all sorts of things.
Right.
Their values, their identity, their social groups, their personal experiences.
Yeah.
AI-generated content is just one tiny piece of that incredibly complex puzzle.
So it's not just about the tech itself. It's about how it interacts with human psychology and the whole messy world of politics. That's a really important point.
Absolutely. And if you talk to people who actually work on political campaigns,
Yeah.
you'll find that AI is being used.
Oh, really?
But not in the way most people think.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, instead of crafting like manipulative deepfakes
Mm.
or hyper-personalized messages, campaigns are using AI for much more mundane tasks.
Okay.
Things like optimizing fundraising.
So making sure those campaign dollars keep rolling in.
Exactly. Or coordinating get-out-the-vote efforts.
Right.
Reminding people to actually cast their ballots.
Right.
And streamlining their operations,
Yeah.
making the whole campaign run more efficiently. It's less about manipulation and more about logistics.
That's interesting. Get out the vote efforts. What exactly does that entail?
Basically, it's about making sure your supporters actually show up at the polls.
Mhm.
It can involve things like identifying likely voters,
Okay.
sending them reminders to vote,
Mm-hmm.
and even providing transportation to polling places.
And it's about mobilizing your base
Uh-huh.
and making the voting process as easy as possible.
Precisely. And AI can help campaigns do all of that more effectively. It's not exactly the stuff of sci-fi thrillers, but it's
Yeah.
having a real impact on how campaigns are run.
So we've got AI being used for things like optimizing fundraising, streamlining operations, get out the vote efforts. Kind of a far cry from the whole AI is going to steal the election narrative, huh?
It is, but while the initial wave of AI panic might have been overblown, we shouldn't completely dismiss the potential risks.
Okay.
There are definitely some things we need to be aware of.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What are those risks? What else do we need to consider?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about how some of those initial like fears about AI completely hijacking elections might have been a bit, overblown.
Right.
But you're saying there are still some legitimate risks that we need to be aware of.
Right. While it's important, not to get swept up in all the hype, we also shouldn't become complacent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easy to fixate on the shiny new tech, right?
Right.
But let's not forget about the very real threats to democracy that have been around long before AI even entered the picture.
You're talking about those like deeper systemic issues
Yeah.
that are kind of lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. Issues like voter suppression,
Right.
where certain groups are systematically, disenfranchised
Right.
and prevented from exercising their right to vote.
That's a huge issue. And it's not just about access to like polling places either, right?
Right.
It's about things like gerrymandering and restrictive voter ID laws that that disproportionately impact, marginalized communities.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
then there's the intimidation of voters and election officials,
right.
sometimes even escalating to like violence,
Wow.
which, really undermines the integrity of the entire electoral process.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think that people would go to such lengths to like manipulate the system.
And and we can't forget about attacks on journalists and the free press.
Oh, right.
I mean, they play a vital role in in holding power to account and informing the public. When journalists are silenced or intimidated, it creates a breeding ground for misinformation and propaganda.
That's so true. Without a free and independent press, it's easy for those in power to just like control the narrative and manipulate public opinion.
And then there's the erosion of checks and balances.
Right.
Those crucial mechanisms that are designed to prevent abuses of power. When those safeguards are weakened, it becomes much easier for um, corruption and authoritarianism to take root.
It's like a slow but steady like chipping away at the foundations of democracy.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we can't ignore the role of politicians themselves in spreading disinformation and undermining trust in the system.
Right.
When those in power actively sow discord and distrust, it further erodes public faith in democratic institutions.
It's a vicious cycle. It creates this atmosphere of like cynicism and apathy where people start to feel like, their voices don't matter
Right.
and that the system is rigged against them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the potential dangers of focusing too narrowly on AI.
Okay.
While it's, important to address the technological challenges,
Mm.
it's crucial not to lose sight of these deeper systemic issues.
So you're saying that by like fixating on AI as the villain, we might actually be missing the bigger picture.
That's the risk. It's like being so focused on treating the symptoms that we ignore the underlying disease. We pour all our energy into combating the AI boogeyman while neglecting the root causes of democratic decline.
So it's not just about like fighting the tech, it's about addressing those underlying like societal and political factors that make us vulnerable to manipulation in the first place.
Exactly. It's about strengthening democratic institutions,
Yeah.
protecting voting rights,
Yeah.
promoting media literacy, and holding our leaders accountable for their actions.
That's a lot to unpack. So where do we even begin? What can we like as individuals do to make a difference in all of this?
Well, the first step is to stay informed.
Okay.
Don't just focus on the tech side of things. Pay attention to what's happening politically,
Right.
both locally and nationally.
Okay.
Who's running for office? What are their positions on these critical issues?
That's a great point. It's easy to kind of get like caught up in the national news cycle, but local elections can have a huge impact on like our daily lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And support organizations that are fighting for voting rights and democratic values.
Right.
There are countless groups doing amazing work on the ground. Donate your time, your money, or simply amplify their message.
Every little bit helps, right?
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of conversation.
Okay.
Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues about these issues. Challenge misinformation when you see it,
Yeah.
and help people develop media literacy skills so they can be more discerning consumers of information.
So we can all become more like informed and engaged citizens.
Yeah.
Precisely. And finally, hold our leaders accountable.
Go.
Demand that they strengthen democratic institutions, protect voting rights, and combat disinformation. Let them know that these are the issues we care about.
So it's about like taking action on multiple fronts, staying informed, supporting organizations, having those like tough conversations,
Right.
and holding our leaders accountable.
Exactly. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. It requires active participation from all of us.
Well said. That's a powerful message to end on. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the hype surrounding AI's potential impact on elections. We debunked some of the more sensational claims, and we looked at the very real threats to democracy that have nothing to do with technology. So I think that's about it for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.